an age of wild seas and unknown lands, where the roar of winds echoed through the forest and the sound of blades cutting through the air was constant, three daring Vikings found themselves facing something that would challenge everything they knew about the world. An ancient map, found by pure luck, revealed a path to a mystical destination, the very trunk of Yggdrasil, the world tree, which connected all realms of existence. But what awaited them there was no simple journey. It was a test of courage, strength, and wisdom. With each step, the power of their ancestors would become more palpable, for at the end of the route, a singular treasure awaited, three weapons with unique abilities, forged by the gods themselves. The first of the Vikings, a man of immense strength, would be worthy of an axe whose cuts would not only cut flesh, but also carve destinies. The second, a warrior with a sharp mind, would be granted a shield that would not only protect him from blows, but would also reflect the strength of his own spirit. And the third, with a loyal and impetuous heart, would receive armor that would not only protect him from any blade, but would also grant him an invulnerability that would make him almost unbeatable. Each of these weapons possessed a magical essence, an ancient energy that would shape the path of its bearers. Together, with these gifts in hand, the three Vikings would found a new kingdom, far from wars and bloody disputes. The kingdom of Valony, where peace and prosperity would become the greatest weapons and the grandest goal. A kingdom where power was not found in battles, but in the strength of unity and harmony between the kingdoms of Midgard and the gods. But not everything would be simple in Valony. With each new journey, immense challenges would arise, forging the true essence of what it means to rule with wisdom and strength. What will happen to these three Vikings in the face of what is to come? And how will the weapons they carry change the course of history forever? In the heart of a Viking village, on the banks of a rushing river that cut through vast forests, three warriors stood out not only for their skill in combat, but for their unbreakable friendship. They were known in their homeland as the Three Spirits of the North, a nickname that reflected not only their strength, but the depth of their bond, something that time and trials could not break. Their names were Thorolf, Kjetil, and Erik, and their journeys, though different, had been intertwined from the moment they met. Thorolf, the eldest of the three, was a robust man with broad shoulders and a thick beard, a symbol of his resilience. His imposing presence was accompanied by a wisdom that only the most seasoned warriors could acquire. Thorolf had been the natural leader of his village, always focused on protecting his brothers and preserving their traditions. However, the war had left him scarred, and he knew that his true strength lay no longer in his sharp blade, but in the counsel and unity he could provide. Kjetil, the second, was a man of agile and restless spirit. His lean, muscular body reflected a man who preferred fast, strategic fighting. Kjetil had been raised in the northern mountains, where the blizzards and biting winds had shaped his sharp mind and fearless body. Although he was the youngest, his strategic vision and ability to cunningly disarm the enemy made him essential in any battle. He was a strategist of the group, and his ideas often provoked heated debate among his friends, but always resulted in victorious solutions. Erik, the most impetuous of the three, was the soul of the battle. With a piercing gaze and an indomitable spirit, Erik possessed unmatched strength, both physical and mental. Raised among the icy fjords, where traditions of combat were passed down from generation to generation, Erik had a natural talent for weapons, be it sword, bow, or spear. He believed that a warrior's honor lay in fighting with courage and ferocity, without fear of death, for he had already accepted the destiny of a Viking. His energy and strength inspired everyone around him, and although often impulsive, he never failed to defend his friends to the end. Fate brought these three warriors together at a crucial moment. They had been summoned to a great battle against a common enemy, an invasion of the Saxons from the north. The battlefield was where the bond between them was forged. Thorolf, with his natural leadership, guided the army's movements. Kjetil, with his unpredictable tactics, weakened the enemy before they even confronted them, and Erik, with his unshakable courage, threw himself forward, taking the front line and challenging anyone who dared to oppose him. It was during this fight that the three saved each other more than once, and respect and friendship began to grow. After the victory over the Saxons, a great celebration was held, and there, amidst the songs of banquets and dances, true friendship was born. They swore loyalty to each other, and what began as a war alliance turned into a brotherhood that would last a lifetime. Together, they set out on many other campaigns and adventures, growing closer with each victory and each loss. Their deeds became legends among the other Vikings, and soon their names were known in every village, from the fields of the frozen north to the golden coast of the south. It was during one of these voyages that something inexplicable happened. As they sailed in search of new territory, a strange phenomenon occurred. The sea was calm, and the sky was clear, when an old man appeared before them, on a forgotten island amidst the mist of the water. The old man was a man in worn clothes, but his gaze was weighted with ancient wisdom. He studied them carefully before handing them a map, saying only, "The destiny of Yggdrasil calls to you, and those who seek the truth with courage will be granted the power to change the course of the world." The map the old man handed them was not like the ordinary maps they had seen before. It was drawn not on paper, but on animal skins, with symbols that seemed to dance in the light of the flames. Each line seemed to pulse with a strange and mysterious energy. Kjetil was the first to understand the importance of what lay before them. "This is a path to the very heart of Yggdrasil," he said, his eyes shining. "The world tree, a route few, if any, have dared to travel." As Kjetil studied the map, Thorolf felt an inexplicable strength in his chest. He knew, like an omen, that this would be his greatest journey. And Eric, with his adventurous spirit, was already prepared for action. They had met by chance, but now they knew that their friendship would be tested in a way beyond any challenge the world could offer. The bond that united them was no longer just that of warriors. It was a bond of souls sharing a common destiny. From that moment on, nothing would be the same. They embarked on a journey that would take them beyond what any Viking had ever imagined. And as the boat cut through the icy waters, their hearts beat as one, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The treasure promised on the Yggdrasil trunk route was not just a prize, but the key to something much greater, the power to change the destiny of their people. And together, they set out, confident that their bond would carry them to the end. But would the power of Yggdrasil be enough to challenge everything they knew? Or would the very weapons they gained change not only their future, but the history of the entire world? Fate awaited. Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eric's departure was not an easy or inconsequential one. The map that guided them to Yggdrasil was not a known route, but a mysterious and dangerous path. Unsure of what truly awaited them, the three warriors set off in their boats, the wind cutting their faces and the waves crashing hard against the wooden hulls. Hope and determination were etched on their faces, but there was also a hint of fear, as if the sea itself sensed that something monumental was about to happen. There was no turning back now. They were committed to their destiny. For the first few days of their journey, the sea seemed calm, almost serene. But something was about to change. A great fog, denser than any they had ever encountered, suddenly appeared, completely swallowing their boats. The sound of the waves was muffled by the mist, and the feeling of being lost in the unknown took hold of everyone on board. It was as if the ocean itself was testing them. Thorolf, who would normally be the most cautious, took the first step with confidence. "What we seek, we must find," he said, his hoarse voice cutting through the heavy atmosphere. And so, with determination, they moved forward, guided only by the winds and the stars, which were almost invisible. But the fog was not the only adversity they faced. On a moonless night, a colossal storm hit them, like a punishment from the gods themselves. The wind howled like a lament, and the waves crashed against the boats with brutal force. Kjetil, with his strategic mind, used the storm to his advantage, instructing the others to maneuver the vessels so as not to be swallowed by the currents. He knew that the wind could be an ally if they used its strength correctly. For hours, the fight for survival was relentless, and it was at that moment that, For the first time, their friendship was tested. Eric, always impetuous, wanted to bravely face the sea, but was restrained by Thorolf, who knew that the path to victory lay not in brute force, but in the wisdom of each move. Together, under Thorolf's leadership, they managed to get through the storm, but not before losing part of their supplies. As the days passed, nature became even more treacherous. The sun burned high above, but the heat did not bring relief. On the contrary, it created illusions that made them see mirages on the horizon. Kjetil was the first to realize that the map was being distorted by their minds, which were already beginning to be affected by the journey. He suggested that they rest and just follow the natural flow of the current, trusting in their experience. However, physical and mental fatigue began to take hold of everyone, making each step more difficult than the last. And it was at this moment that Eric, the most impetuous, began to question whether they were really on the right path. He was not one to give in to fatigue, but he was beginning to realize that the hardships they faced were not just physical, but spiritual. The route that had initially seemed safe was now taking them into unknown territories. Territories where the god played with fate. One night, as they lit a fire, a strange creature appeared in the shadows, its luminous eyes reflecting the light of the flame. The being, tall and thin, with greenish skin and hair like moss, was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The path to Yggdrasil is reserved for the brave, but few return from it, the creature said, its voice low and booming. With every step, a sacrifice will be required. Are you prepared for this? The tension in the air grew. The trio, without hesitation, accepted the challenge, promising not to stray from the path, no matter the cost. However, as a reminder that they were treading a dangerous path, the creature disappeared into the shadows, leaving a feeling of emptiness and uncertainty. Time continued to pass, and as they approached the edge of the known world, new and more terrifying challenges arose. The dense forests, where giant trees blocked the view of the sky, were full of wild animals, such as wolves with glowing eyes and giant serpents that moved along the roots of the trees. During one of these ambushes, Eric, who was in the lead, was attacked by a monstrous snake whose teeth were like sharp swords. Thorolf, with his brute strength, managed to drive the creature away, but Eric was seriously injured. It was Kjetil, with his healing skills, who found a rare plant capable of curing the most powerful poisons. This experience made the bond between them grow even closer, for at that moment they were no longer just battle companions, but brothers on the journey. The nights, now cold and endless, passed slowly, but their spirits were unshaken. In their conversations around the campfire, they spoke of the future, of the kingdoms they would conquer, and of the treasure they would soon find. However, they knew that with every step, the forces of Yggdrasil were testing their courage, their faith, and above all, their bond. They were being molded into something greater, something that would transcend any physical treasure. When they reached the base of Yggdrasil, the world tree, the very air seemed to vibrate with energy. The roots of the tree were like immense stone serpents, and the trunk, as vast as a mountain, stretched to the sky. They were before something so great that it seemed beyond human reach, and even the fiercest warriors felt small before this ancient force. But the true test lay ahead. A magical portal appeared before them, as if testing their ability to move forward. Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eric looked at each other, determination written on their faces. There was no turning back. They had overcome seas, storms, wild beasts, and magical creatures. Now, they were ready for whatever fate had in store for them. Together, they clasped hands, ready to take the final step toward what would undoubtedly be the greatest adventure of their lives. After the last step on the path to Yggdrasil, an indescribable sensation enveloped them. It was as if the world itself, with its vast distances and wild landscapes, had dissolved into a single current of energy. The trees and rocks, the waters and wind seemed to disappear, and the sound of the distant sea was replaced by a deep, almost absolute silence. Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eric felt both a pressure and a lightness, a sense that they were crossing the fine line between the known and the unknown. They were about to enter a realm far beyond all human understanding. The portal before them was unlike any physical gate they might have passed through. It seemed to be made of the very essence of Yggdrasil, its roots and branches intertwined in intricate patterns, forming a structure that spiraled out before them. It was as if the trunk of the world tree itself were bending, giving way to a new realm. There were no words that could describe the grandeur of that moment, but their hearts were beating fast, as if they felt that, by crossing that portal, they were not only changing places, but transforming their very existence. As they crossed, the view that unfolded before them was even more surreal. They were no longer in the physical world, but in a vast hall illuminated by a golden light that seemed to emanate from all directions. The ceiling seemed to be lost in a celestial infinity, with stars and constellations floating, without concern for time or space. The room was grand, and in the center of it, 3 golden thrones were positioned, illuminated by a soft glow, as if waiting for the arrival of the warriors. Each throne was adorned with intricate details of metals and precious stones, reflecting the golden light in a spectacle of colors that made them feel like they were before something sacred. As they advanced, their eyes, filled with disbelief, recognized something even more impressive. On each throne rested a weapon. These were no ordinary weapons, but were forged with perfection that defied all human comprehension. The throne in the center held a massive axe, with a blade of gleaming silver, as if it reflected the power of the gods themselves. The second throne, on the right, bore a giant shield, adorned with ancient runes, the surface of which seemed to change with each movement, reflecting the energy around it. And the third, on the left, was clad in golden armor, with intricate designs that seemed to move in the light, giving the impression that the armor itself was alive, waiting to be used. Most surprising, however, was the inscription engraved on the arms of each throne. On the axe throne was the name Thorolf, and the axe seemed to call to him, as if waiting to be wielded in his hand. On the shield throne was the name Kjetil, and the shield glowed with a soft light that seemed to protect the very air around it. And finally, on the throne of the armor was the name Eirik, and the armor pulsed with vibrant energy, almost as if it responded to Eirik's presence with some inexplicable connection. They approached slowly, feeling the weight of the gravity of the moment. Each step was accompanied by a growing sense of responsibility. They knew that these weapons were not simply for combat. They were symbols of something much greater. Each represented not only the power of a warrior, but the destiny of a kingdom, the future of a world yet to be shaped. But before they could touch the weapons, a vast, ethereal presence revealed itself before them. A tall figure, cloaked in a cloak of pure light, with eyes that shone like distant stars. The being had an aura of mystery and wisdom, and his voice, when he spoke, seemed to vibrate in the air, echoing in the room like an ancient melody. "I am the guardian of this place," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "And you, warriors, are the chosen ones." The guardian's words seemed to echo in the hearts of each of them. They knew that they were facing something greater than themselves, something that could not be understood with reason alone, but only with the soul. The guardian continued, as if speaking directly to the spirit of each of them. "You are more than just warriors. You are kings. Kings who will bring peace to the world, but not with the strength of a sword, not with the weight of an axe or the shine of a shield. True strength lies in unity. Each of these weapons does not belong to one of you alone, but to all of you. Only together, with courage and wisdom, will you be able to fulfill the destiny that has been given to you." Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eirik, hearing the guardian's words, felt a weight and a lightness at the same time. The destiny that awaited them was not to rule with an iron fist, but to unite, heal, and lead with a pure heart. The peace that they were to bring to the world would not be achieved in bloody battles, but in actions and decisions that preserved balance and harmony between kingdoms and peoples. The guardian then pointed to the 3 thrones and, with a mystical gesture, made the weapons levitate in the air, as if they were part of celestial dance. These weapons, forged by the gods themselves, are instruments of power, but also of responsibility. When wielded, they should not be used in isolation, but as symbols of unity. Only together, with hearts aligned in a single goal, will they be able to achieve true power and bring the peace that the world so desperately needs. The three warriors, feeling the depth of the moment, took a step forward, and, as they touched the weapons, an immense energy enveloped them. Each one felt the power of the weapon chosen for him, but at the same time, the feeling that that weapon was only an extension of something much greater, a collective purpose. With the three of them together, the magic intensified, and the guardian smiled, as if he knew that, for the first time, the world was about to change. "Now that you understand your destiny, follow me," said the guardian, as a shining portal opened before them. The being, with a calm gesture, led the warriors inside, and, as they passed through the portal, they felt the energy of the place begin to dissipate, as if time and space were taking them back to the physical world. They were about to return to their hometown, but they knew that, when they left that portal, nothing would be the same again. The kingdom they were about to build would not only be a kingdom of power, but a kingdom of peace and prosperity, where the unity of their hearts and their strength would be the key to a new beginning. The return of Thorolf, Kjetil, and Erik to their homeland was not just a physical journey. Those who had set out from Denmark years before in search of the treasure hidden deep within Yggdrasil were no longer the same. They had passed through a portal of power that had not only taken them to a mystical place beyond comprehension, but had also transformed them, as if imbued with the power of the world tree itself. Now, with weapons that transcended the material, armor that had become symbols of divine power, and hearts burning with the fire of their mission given by the gods, the three warriors were ready for what lay ahead. But for many, their return would be an unusual event, and the story of the Kingdom of Peace, still a dream, seemed too distant. As they stepped back onto the lands of Denmark, the air was the same, fresh and salty, with the wind blowing strong between the hills, a constant reminder that the sea was both friend and foe. But nothing else seemed familiar. The Denmark they found was no longer the same as the one they had left behind. The villages were divided, and the lands were marked by the scars of ancient wars. The people were exhausted, tired of fighting. They yearned for something more, but they did not know what. However, when they saw the three warriors disembark, with their golden robes and weapons, a whisper ran through the villages. The return of the three men was not just a physical return, but the fulfillment of a divine promise. The legends of their exploits in Yggdrasil had spread, and the people believed that the three brought with them something more than power. They brought the hope of a new era. It was on a verdant plain, among the mountains that had been the scene of so many battles, that the three warriors decided to establish their kingdom. They did not seek a land rich in gold or fertile lands, for they already possessed something much more valuable. The vision of a kingdom based on peace, where power would not be what divided, but what united the people. Looking across the vast lands of Denmark, Thorolf, with his wisdom gained through battle and age, felt that the region of hills and rivers would be the perfect place for the new kingdom. It was a land between the sea and the mountains, with ample vegetation that would feed its people, but it would also be in a strategic location, in the center of Denmark, so that the kingdom would be easily accessible and visible to the other Viking peoples. However, the idea of a peaceful kingdom was not something that was easy to achieve. The warrior spirit of the Vikings was still alive in many of the neighboring villages, and tensions between the clans were high. There were many who doubted the proposal of Thorolf, Kjetil, and Erik, believing that if it were not the sword that ruled the world, human nature would lead to chaos. But the three warriors were not willing to give in. They knew that the true strength of a king lay not in ruling through fear, but in inspiring respect and uniting the hearts of his people. The first battle for peace was fought not with swords but with words. Thorolf, ever the wise leader, called a meeting of the clan chiefs, the most powerful in the entire land. He spoke with the passion of someone who had seen the horrors of war, but also with the serenity of someone who knew that only through unity would prosperity be possible. He did not offer land conquest or material wealth. He offered a kingdom where disputes would be settled fairly and where everyone, from whatever social class, would have a place. However, diplomacy would not be enough to convince everyone. Some clans were unwilling to accept such a radical change, fearing that their own power would be diminished. It was then that Kjetil, with his strategic skill, suggested something bolder. If the power of words is not enough, then the power of action will show what we are willing to do to protect our vision. They did not seek war, but rather defiance. As part of their proposal, Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eirik challenged the most belligerent clans to a fight that did not aim at destruction, but rather at demonstrating their collective strength. If they were defeated, they would give up their vision of peace. But if they won, the clans would have to accept the alliance. The battle was epic, but instead of a brutal fight, it was marked by a disciplined and symbolic style of combat, where each blow was measured, not to kill, but to show the strength of the union. And, as the three warriors predicted, their union, not only as warriors, but as friends and brothers in destiny, prevailed. The most resistant clans began to understand that the three were not only rulers, but bearers of a deeper and more lasting power, the power of brotherhood and alliance. With the symbolic victory and tensions eased, the kingdom of peace began to solidify. But there was more to be done. It would not be enough to simply establish a stable government. It was necessary to shape a culture that lived and breathed the philosophy of unity. It was then that Eirik, with his courage and passion, began a movement throughout the kingdom, encouraging the people to participate in the construction of villages, fortresses, and schools, where future generations will be taught to value unity and respect, rather than fueling the eternal cycle of revenge. Over time, the words of Thorolf, Kjetil, and Eirik spread throughout Denmark and beyond. The once suspicious neighboring peoples began to look to the three warriors, now known as the three kings of Valeni, for guidance. They were not just kings of a single kingdom. They were leaders of a movement that aspired to something much greater. The kingdom of peace was established not only in Denmark, but in the lands beyond. It was a land where war was not the first response but the last, and where power was seen not as brute force but as the ability to protect and guide. As the kingdom grew, the capital city of Valeni flourished. Its streets, once covered in mud and filth, became clean and prosperous, its homes built with love and joint labor. The three kings never separated, ruling not as autocratic monarchs, but as brothers of a unified nation. Thorolf, with his wisdom, guided the council's decisions. Kjetil, with his strategic vision, planned the kingdom's future. And Eirik, with his bravery, was always on the front lines, inspiring his warriors to fight for peace. The kingdom of peace became a beacon of hope for other peoples who had long been at war. When enemies came to their door, the three kings did not give in to fear, but faced adversity with courage. And as always, they won not with weapons, but with the strength of their unbreakable spirit. And so the legend of Valeni spread throughout the world. It was not just a kingdom of peace, but an example that even in the deepest shadows of war, light could be found. True strength lay not in the weapons they bore, but in their unity. When weapons were wielded, they were always in unison, and the power of the trio ensured victory. As the years passed and their bodies aged, the three kings knew that their journey would not be eternal. They had already fulfilled their mission, and the kingdom was ready to prosper on its own. When the final day came for each of them, it was not in combat, but in a peaceful bed, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and the people they had so fervently protected. They died not as warriors, but as symbols of an age of change. The kingdom of peace remained, a legacy not of conquest, but of wisdom. And when future generations looked upon the three golden thrones, in a great hall where weapons rested, they knew that Valeno's true victory lay not in his swords or axes, but in the union of the hearts of the three great kings, who showed the world that even the fiercest warriors can be instruments of peace. Did you like this story? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next epic sagas. The journey continues.